Hello to all our followers. I'm Alice from Let's Localise and welcome to this latest Friends of Let's Localise interview. And today I'm joined by Phil Sharrock, who is a former head teacher and a supporter of our platform. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Alice. Hi.
Hiya. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're really excited to hear some of your thoughts on Let's Localise and the education system at the moment. So let's kick off. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, what your professional history is and how you came across Let's Localise.
I've been a teacher per se for about 28 years. I've been a head teacher up until about a year and a half ago. I was a head teacher for about 8 years in 4 different schools all over the country. I specialised in schools in areas of high economic socio-development and lots of free school meals, and schools that were probably, well, most of them were high EAL. And I specialised in getting them from inadequate to good quickly. And the last school that I was the substantive head of I took it from inadequate to good in 15 months.
Oh, wow. It sounds like you're really passionate about teaching and good at turning those schools around as well. What is it that you love most about teaching? Is it seeing those kind of transformations or anything else?
Yeah, I think the thing I get the most pleasure out of is seeing empowered staff and children learning and happy and happy to be in schools. You know, there's an inordinate amount of press about the negativity around schools, and there always seems to be a lot of school bashing going on in the press day after day after day. But if you worked for me, you had fun. You know, it was the sort of school where everybody was getting dressed up in fancy dress. I would be the head teacher who was riding the unicycle down the corridor. If I went out on a day's course, I came back and found my office, literally every single thing in the office wrapped in silver foil. These were the sort of things that were happening all the time in the schools that I ran. And you know, I'm a great believer that if you empower staff and you free them up from the nonsense that comes from certain aspects of our education system, and you keep that away from them and allow them to be teachers, then they're very, very good at their job and they love working for you because they are empowered. They're free. They don't have the. Yeah. I always made it very clear that I was the second most important person in the school. The teachers, apart from the children, of course, the teachers were more important than me because they were in the classroom with the kids all the time. It was my job to help them to do their job. And so
it sounds like you've got the approach sort of nailed then, which is fantastic. Yeah. Let's turn the conversation a little bit more to Let's Localise. Do you think that your teaching career and your experiences as a head teacher would have been different if you'd had a platform like Let's Localise that had been able to help you get funding and resources? Would that have made a big difference?
I know that a platform like Let's Localise would have assisted me in my whole career. Early on in my career, I was an IT coordinator in an infant school, and I walked into the school as the new IT coordinator and found 2 computers in a box. And then I spent the next year and a half scrounging together 30 PCs from local businesses that had gone bust and various different things, and got the PC. You know, these were old-fashioned PCs. But I put an ICT suite together.
So you're sort of like a proto Let's Localise on your own.
That's just one aspect. You know, I'm a PE graduate. You know, initially, I trained as an infant teacher, but physical education was my main subject. And, you know, to be able to get my hands on, you know, good quality PE equipment and good quality coaching or whatever it may be it a person or be it equipment in whichever way, whether it's IT or mathematics or, you know, or English, whichever way that you want to look at it. A platform like Let's Localise automatically gives you that opportunity to reach out to everybody within your community and say, listen, you know, who can give me a hand with this? It's about thinking differently, doing things differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really interesting story. And I think that kind of encapsulates nicely what we're trying to do, which is make a difference by bringing in different things to give kids a well-rounded education, really. And hopefully teachers now and in the future can benefit and do things a bit more like what you were trying to do by the sounds of it. So then in terms of the features that we have at Let's Localise that allow us to do that, which of them do you think is the most powerful and are you most excited by? Is it like Pledge a Penny, Pledge a Resource, Expert Time, or anything else? Is there one that really stands out to you?
For me, I like the time one, but people give their time. I was always more keen on giving the children experiences rather than rather than the material things. It was a case of they all work well together in conjunction with each other. But for me, you get kids' engagement when people come in and talk to them, or people come in and work with them. And so by utilising things like Let's Localise, you can bring members of your local community in who have got history, who have got knowledge, who have got wisdom, and who can tell it how it really was to those kids. And then those kids can go off, research it, find out more about it, and they've got a point of reference where they can talk to as well. So I always like that. I like the idea of people. Education is a people business, and I know it works well for, if you want to, you're developing business will always have more money for the IT aspect of it and things like that. But for me, I was always more, I get more excited about when I know that people can come in and talk and talk. You might have an Olympian in your parents. You don't know.
Yeah, you never know until you ask, do you?
You don't know until you go out there and find out. You might have a professional footballer in your parent group, or an uncle of a parent or whatever, or an auntie. I shouldn't be so sexist. An auntie of a parent could play for England. Who knows?
I'm going to change the subject slightly now and talk a little bit about schools reopening as the lockdown begins to end. I'm just wondering, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge that schools face as they start to reopen? And do you think Let's Localise is well placed to help tackle those challenges?
We're down to 1 metre plus. By the time we get to, end of July, it'll be, as long as we don't have a second spike. His intention is for everybody to be back for September, and I think that schools should be planning for that. If I was in, if I had my own school now, my focus would be on September. I would be where I am at this moment in time with the early years and vulnerable children and possible year sixes, whether they wanted to send them in or not. But I would be looking now to sort of plan for September, and I would roll with what we've got at this moment in time, continuing with online learning for the rest of the children, and be planning ahead for September for a full return to school. There's been, I think if I went out there today and asked 100 kids if they'd missed school, that they would all say yes. But I would also argue that probably 99% of them would also argue that they've missed their friends and the socialization of it. They haven't missed the learning bit of it. They've missed their friends. They've missed the, being with their friends, being in school, missed their teachers, missed the people. They haven't missed the curriculum. They haven't missed learning. They've missed friends. They've missed socialization. That's what they've missed. And I think that we should be planning in September to get children back in and focusing on that. I would be, Let's Localise can help that by working by schools reaching out into their communities to say, who can help us develop that well-being, that welfare of our children when they all come back to school? Who can do something with us? Who can pledge that resource? Who can pledge that penny? Who can pledge that that time to be able to support us so that we can get our children back on an even keel? Because if kids aren't on an even keel, they're not going to learn. You can forget learning, you can forget catching up, you can forget it all until they're calm, regulated, stable and happy. When they're there, and you do what you've got to do.
So it all goes back to then broadening the curriculum, you think, which is one of the things we're really passionate about at Let's Localise. We've had some really good successes actually recently during the COVID. So we've been supplying things like Wi-Fi connections and technology for kids to use at home. So hopefully, as you say, we can continue to do that as things sort of start to return to normal in September. Finally then, before we close up, I wanted to ask if you have any words of advice or encouragement to any teachers or school leaders who might be curious about Let's Localise or thinking about getting involved. Is there anything that you would say to them?
If I was a head teacher, this would be at the heart of my school policies, really. I would put it right up there and say, look, if you are planning on doing anything, if you are thinking about doing anything in terms of your school development plan, reach out to Let's Localise, and they will be able to assist you and help you in whichever way that you need it to be. Teachers can do it at a class level, and head teachers can do it from a whole school perspective. You know what I mean? So from a head teacher's perspective, you can look at it and say, yeah, it can be a whole school application. It works at every level. It works from head teacher to teaching assistant, all the way down and through the community. Your PTAs can reach out through Let's Localise to say, we want to do this for our kids, who can support us. And to me, it's absolute common sense. The way that I got schools to grow quickly was in collaboration. You cannot do it on your own. You have to have people who are willing to work alongside you and share with you and communicate with you.
Yeah.
You have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to be trusting. If you give that, you get that back. I think that as we come out of COVID and we return to normality, if DFE, if the DFE can get their hands on it and see what a useful tool it is, it will spread like wildfire across the whole of the education sector.
Yeah, well, that's our goal, and I think that's probably a nice note to end on, and hopefully that will happen, and we'll see a lot more success stories in the near future.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of everyone at Let's Localise, thank you so much for interviewing today and for your really insightful answers. And we look forward to working with you in the near future. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah. Not at all. Absolutely my pleasure.